3 steps, and I want you to touch each step.
Now hear this, all nurses fall out for night maneuver.
The coolest man on American television couldn't read his own scripts. The girl who played everybody's kid sister died in a trailer park at 56, and the tabloids blamed drugs, but the coroner said cancer. A guest star walked on for one single episode and became the funniest human being who ever lived. Then a disease no one diagnosed in time erased him from the inside out. And the man who ran the drive-in? He spent his childhood in a Japanese internment camp. What really happened to the cast of Happy Days will hit you harder than a jukebox. Ron Howard, the kid who outgrew the frame. Ronald William Howard, born March 1st, 1954 in Duncan, Oklahoma. 20 years old when Happy Days premiered.
He had with some beer in teeny weeny glasses.
How many teeny-weeny glasses did you have?
72.
Already famous, little Opie Taylor from Andy Griffith. All freckles and fishing poles and decency you could spread on toast. Richie Cunningham was Opie grown up. The good kid, the straight arrow. The one who played it safe while Fonzie played it cool. But here's what most people missed.
Me and Mary Lou Milligan? Well, the fact is, I played chess.
You played with her chest?
Ron Howard was already directing while the show was still #1. He left in 1980, season 7, because the actor's chair was getting small and he could feel it. How does the most wholesome kid on American television become one of the most powerful filmmakers in Hollywood? Splash, Cocoon, Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind, Best Director Oscar 2002, 2 Academy Awards, a production empire with Brian Grazer, dozens of films that defined American cinema for 3 decades, married Cheryl Alley in 1975, still married, 51 years, 4 children including Bryce Dallas Howard. In an industry built on wreckage, Ron Howard built a marriage that outlasted his show by 4 decades.
You went to the Yale School of Drama, Henry. Come on, you know you can do it.
In 2026, Ron Howard is 72, worth around $200 million. Richie Cunningham always did the right thing. Ron Howard made that look easy. It wasn't. But the man who stood next to him in Arnold's, the one in the leather jacket, the one everybody thought had it all figured out, was carrying a secret he didn't even have a name for until he was 31. Henry Winkler, the Fonz who couldn't read. Henry Franklin Winkler, born October 30th, 1945 in Manhattan, 28 when he became the coolest human being in America. The leather jacket, the thumbs up, the jukebox. Hey! Hey! He was supposed to be a background greaser. Within 2 seasons, he was on the cover of Time magazine.
They think there's only 2 different kinds of people, white and colored.
There are 2 kinds of people. Cool and nerds, and the people down in Arnold's are nerds.
But here's what nobody knew. Henry Winkler could barely read his own scripts. His parents were German Jewish immigrants who escaped Nazi Germany in 1939. They believed in education with a ferocity that left no room for failure. Henry failed. Constantly. His father called him dumb dog. He was grounded for most of high school. Applied to 28 colleges. 2 accepted him. Got into Yale drama on an audition. A monologue he memorized because reading it cold was impossible. He didn't know why until he was 31.
Cool it!
His stepson couldn't write a school report. Henry found himself saying everything to the boy that had been said to him. Live up to your potential. Stop being lazy. They had the boy tested. Dyslexia. And something in Henry's head went, that's me. It has a name. How does a man who can't read become one of the most famous actors in the world? By memorizing what he could and improvising the rest with enough conviction that nobody caught it. Every script, every scene, every season.
So what I say goes, dig it?
11 years of faking fluency on the most watched show in America. After Happy Days, the typecasting nearly buried him. He produced MacGyver, wrote 29 children's books about a kid with dyslexia, then Arrested Development, then Barry, his first Emmy at 72, married Stacey Weitzman in 1978, still married, 48 years. In 2026, Henry Winkler is 80. He just delivered the commencement address at Emerson College, one of the 2 schools that accepted him out of 28.
No, come on. First of all, I'm out of practice. And second of all, it takes schooling and, you know.
The man America thought was the coolest kid in the room was the one fighting hardest just to stay in it. And the girl who played his TV friend's little sister, her fight was quieter, and it ended somewhere no one expected. Erin Moran, the girl who disappeared into Indiana. Erin Marie Moran, born October 18, 1960 in Burbank, California. 13 when she became Joni Cunningham, Richie's kid sister, the girl who grew up on camera and fell in love with Chachi while America watched.
I feel grown up, but nobody treats me like one.
She'd been working since she was 5. Commercials, guest spots. Her brother Tony played the unmasked Michael Myers in Halloween. The family was built around the camera, but behind Joni's grin was a girl who would later publicly accuse her father of physical and mental abuse. At 15, the producers told her she needed to lose weight and become this sexy thing. 15, on a family show.
Help! I'm being held prisoner in my room!
After Happy Days ended, the work vanished. Joni Loves Chachi lasted 2 seasons. Then guest spots, reality TV, Celebrity Fit Club. The roles shrank, the paychecks thinned, the tabloids got louder.
Came to me, love took me by surprise.
By 2012, she and her husband Steve had lost their home to foreclosure. Reports said they were living in a trailer in Indiana. How does America's kid sister end up in a trailer park and nobody lifts a finger? Then, Thanksgiving 2016, the first symptoms of throat cancer, stage 4. By February, she couldn't speak, couldn't eat. The cancer moved so fast, nobody told them how far it had spread. April 22nd, 2017, found unresponsive. New Salisbury, Indiana, 56 years old. The coroner confirmed squamous cell carcinoma. No illegal narcotics, no drugs. But her co-star, Scott Baio, went on radio and suggested she'd drunk herself to death. Before the autopsy results were even released. The truth came later, quieter. The way truth always does for people nobody's protecting anymore. And the boy who played her boyfriend, the one who said those things, his story is its own kind of reckoning. Scott Baio, Chachi's long, loud slide. Scott Vincent Baio, born September 22nd, 1960 in Brooklyn. 16 when he joined Happy Days as Chachi Arcola, Fonzie's younger cousin, the kid with the grin and the girl. He and Erin Moran got their own show. It didn't work. 2 seasons. Done. Charles in Charge kept the momentum going for 5 more years.
Make my feelings clear and tell you that I love you.
Then the trajectory stopped making sense. Reality shows, political commentary, the 2016 Republican National Convention speech, the 2017 comments about Erin. Each step took him further from the industry that made him famous. Married Renee Sloan in 2007, 1 daughter. Moved his family to Florida in 2023. In 2026, Scott Baio is 65. The teenager who charmed America as Chachi aged into something nobody's kid sister would have recognized. Sometimes the loudest voice in the room is the loneliest one in it. But the man who sat at the head of the Cunningham table, he was the opposite of loud. And the way he left is exactly how you'd expect Mr. C to go. Tom Bosley, Mr. C was exactly who you hoped. Thomas Edward Bosley, born October 1st, 1927 in Chicago. 46 when he became Howard Cunningham, the hardware store owner, the cardigan wearer, the man who said the right thing at the kitchen table every single time America needed to hear it.
Dad, what are you doing here?
I live here.
Before Happy Days, he won a Tony Award for playing Fiorello LaGuardia on Broadway in 1960, a serious stage actor, a man who could hold a room by himself. He walked into a sitcom and became the country's father for 11 seasons. Never resented it, not once. When strangers called him Mr. C on the street, he called it a compliment. How many actors can say they played a character so decent that strangers calling them by the character's name felt like an honor? Here's the detail most people don't know.
The Maloney was so happy that they came back.
You know, they're kind of cute.
Tom Bosley was Jewish, playing the most Catholic-coded father on American television, while simultaneously playing Father Dowling, a literal Catholic priest, on another show for 3 seasons. A Jewish man from Chicago's West Side convinced an entire country he was their favorite dad and their favorite priest at the same time. That is acting at its most invisible and most profound. The craft's so good, nobody sees the craft. Married twice. His first wife, Jean, died in 1978. He married Patricia Carr in 1980 and stayed with her until the end. 1 daughter, Amy, October 19th, 2010. Lung cancer and staph infection, 83. Ron Howard said his last conversations with Bosley reflected the love of life and peace of mind he always maintained. The father everybody wished they had turned out to be exactly the man you hoped he was. That almost never happens in this business. And the woman who sat next to him at that table for 11 seasons, she's still here. 97 years old, still here. Marion Ross, Mrs. C, is still standing. Marion Ross, born October 25th, 1928 in Watertown, Minnesota. 45 when she became Marion Cunningham, the mother in the apron, the one who held that household together while her husband dispensed wisdom and her children chased trouble across Milwaukee. 2 Emmy nominations for the role. But what Marion Ross never talked about publicly for decades was the divorce she endured before Happy Days, raising 2 children alone in an industry that had almost no room for single mothers in the 1960s. She auditioned, she worked, she survived. The warmest TV mother in America had come through a coldness nobody on screen ever saw. That gap between the public warmth and the private struggle, that is where the real performance lived. After Happy Days, she never stopped. Gilmore Girls, The Drew Carey Show, King of the Hill, voice work into her 80s and 90s. She published a memoir in 2018 called My Days, Happy and Otherwise. That title tells you everything about the distance between the character and the woman who carried her. In 2026, Marion Ross is 97 years old. 97. She outlived her TV husband by 16 years and counting. Mrs. C is still here. And in an industry that forgets women the moment they stop being young, Marion Ross refused to be forgotten. That is its own kind of defiance. Now, the guest star. 1 episode. 1 single episode that changed the entire history of American comedy. You already know who this is. Robin Williams. 1 episode changed everything. Robin McLaurin Williams, born July 21st, 1951 in Chicago. 26 when he walked onto the Happy Days set as Mork from Ork, an alien in rainbow suspenders, for a single episode in 1978. The audition is legendary. Gary Marshall asked actors to sit down. Robin sat on his head. Marshall turned to his team. He's the only alien who walked in. Within months, Mork and Mindy was #1 in America. What followed is one of the greatest careers in entertainment history. Good Morning Vietnam, Dead Poets Society, Good Will Hunting, the Oscar, Mrs. Doubtfire, Aladdin. He could make you laugh until your ribs cracked and then, without warning, deliver a performance that made you forget you were watching an actor. Nobody else could do both at that level. Nobody. Behind the laughter was a man fighting battles the audience never saw. Cocaine in the early 80s, alcohol, 3 marriages. He talked about the loneliness of being the funniest person in every room. The suspicion that people loved the act but didn't know the man inside it. You ever know somebody who could make an entire stadium laugh and still go home to a quiet house wondering who he was without the audience? Then came the final years. Lewy body dementia, a disease that was disassembling his mind from the inside while he was still alive. His wife said he was drowning in symptoms, paranoia, insomnia, anxiety, tremors. Every doctor gave a different answer. The greatest improvisational mind of his generation was losing the ability to improvise his own thoughts. August 11th, 2014, Paradise Cay, California, 63. The autopsy revealed Lewy body disease. Not depression, not addiction. A physical disease that erased him while the man inside watched it happen. The funniest human being who ever lived walked on to Happy Days for 1 episode. 1. And the thing that killed him had nothing to do with being funny. But there was another woman from that same set who proved that being funny was only the beginning. She became something Hollywood told her she couldn't. Penny Marshall, the woman who directed her way out. Carol Penny Marshall, born October 15th, 1943 in the Bronx. 32 when she appeared on Happy Days as Laverne DeFazio, a character so electric that her brother Gary Marshall spun her off into her own show within a year. Laverne and Shirley became #1 in America. But Penny wasn't done being underestimated. She stepped behind the camera and directed Big in 1988. Tom Hanks, the piano scene, the whole thing. First woman in American history to direct a film that grossed over $100 million. Then came A League of Their Own. Then Awakenings with De Niro and Robin Williams. The girl from the Bronx who played a brewery worker in Milwaukee became one of the most commercially successful directors in Hollywood, male or female. And she never once stopped being surprised that anyone let her do it. Married twice, Michael Henry, then Rob Reiner. 1 daughter, Tracy. Lung cancer and brain cancer shadowed her final years. She kept working. December 17, 2018, 75. The woman who proved that funny women could also be powerful directors left behind a filmography that most male directors would trade their careers for. And the woman who stood next to her for 8 seasons, the other half of that friendship, followed her just 4 years later. Cindy Williams, the heart that held everything together. Cynthia Jane Williams, born August 22, 1947 in Van Nuys, California. Shirley Feeney, first on Happy Days, then on the spin-off that became a cultural phenomenon. If you've been paying attention, you already know this name. Cindy Williams was the emotional center of American Graffiti. Laurie Henderson, the girl whose quiet heartbreak anchored the entire film, before she became half of television's most famous female friendship. She didn't just appear in 2 beloved ensembles, she held them both together. Her bond with Penny Marshall on screen was lightning. 2 working-class women navigating men, jobs, and Milwaukee with nothing but each other. Off-screen, the friendship was more complicated. Contract disputes ended Cindy's run on Laverne and Shirley before the show itself ended. She left in season 7. The show ran 1 more season without her, and it wasn't the same. Married Bill Hudson in 1982. 2 children. Divorced. Fought for custody through difficult years. January 25th, 2023. Brief illness, 75. The heart that anchored every room she entered, Graffiti, Laverne, Happy Days, simply stopped. 2 shows, 1 iconic film, 3 of the most beloved ensembles in American entertainment history, and the woman who held them together left without making any noise at all. Anson Williams, Potsy, became the boss. Anson William Heimlich, born September 25, 1949 in Los Angeles. Warren Potsy Weber, Richie's singing, slightly dim best friend. The guy everybody underestimated on screen and off. Here's what most people don't know. Anson Williams quietly became one of the most prolific television directors of his generation. Melrose Place, Beverly Hills 90210, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Charmed, Star Trek Deep Space Nine. The guy America laughed at as Potsy was running entire productions, calling shots, shaping performances that millions of viewers watched without ever knowing who was behind the camera. He directed over 70 episodes of television across 3 decades. 70. He also co-founded a company that patented a home remedy for cold sores, got his cousin Henry Winkler to invest, and in 2022, he ran for mayor of Ojai, California. Lost by a narrow margin, but he ran it like a man who had spent decades telling other people what to do and finally wanted to do it for a whole town. In 2026, Anson Williams is 76. The singer who couldn't carry a tune on screen spent 30 years carrying productions nobody knew he was directing. Potsy Weber would be proud, he just wouldn't believe it. Don Most, Ralph, found the music. Donald William Most, born August 8, 1953 in Brooklyn. Ralph Mouth, the class clown, the joke machine, the kid who wanted to make everybody laugh because laughing was easier than feeling anything else. If you watched Happy Days and you didn't love Ralph Mouth, you weren't watching right. After Happy Days, Don Most did something nobody expected. He became a jazz and swing singer, released albums, performed live at clubs and festivals, built an entire second career on a voice the show only ever used for punchlines. In 2023, he released New York High, a full swing album, to reviews that took him seriously for the first time. He also joined the 2011 lawsuit against CBS with Marion Ross and Anson Williams, claiming the cast was owed millions in merchandising revenue. Happy Days lunchboxes, t-shirts, slot machines, all with their faces. The lawsuit settled. The number was never made public, but the fact that it happened tells you something about how television treated its own. In 2026, Don Most is 72. Alive, still performing. Ralph Mouth told 1,000 jokes on camera. Don Most found the music that was always underneath them. Pat Morita, from the internment camp to the dojo. Noriyuki Pat Morita, born June 28, 1932 in Ileton, California. 42 when he became Arnold, the original owner of the drive-in, the man behind the counter who served burgers and quiet wisdom in equal measure. Before any of it, Pat Morita spent his childhood in 2 prisons. The first was a hospital bed. Spinal tuberculosis locked him in a body cast from age 2 to 11. 9 years, a child, immobilized, watching the world through a window. The second was an internment camp. The day he was released from the hospital, he was transferred directly to a Japanese-American detention facility. He went from a body cast to a prison camp without a single normal day of childhood in between. He found comedy, stand-up, a way to make people laugh that didn't require them to see him as a threat. Worked his way onto television, Sanford and Son, MASH, then Arnold's Drive-In. Then came the role that changed everything. Mr. Miyagi, The Karate Kid, an Oscar nomination. The performance made him immortal, but Hollywood had almost no parts for Asian actors beyond variations of the same wise mentor. Morita spent years fighting for roles the industry refused to imagine him in. Then came the drinking. Alcoholism fought privately for decades. A documentary called More Than Miyagi revealed the depth of his struggle and the industry's complicity in deepening it. November 24th, 2005. Kidney failure. Las Vegas, 73. The boy from the internment camp who made America laugh at a counter and cry in a dojo deserved more recognition, more roles, and more time. He got none of it. Al Molinaro, the man who replaced a legend. Umberto Francesco Molinaro, born June 24, 1919 in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Before acting, he ran a collection agency, worked in real estate, didn't start performing until most actors are already thinking about retirement. He was in his 50s before he got his first real break. Officer Murray on The Odd Couple. He joined Happy Days as Al Del Vecchio, the second owner of Arnold's Drive-In, replacing Pat Morita at the counter. Try replacing a legend at a spot where every regular already knows the previous owner's name and his jokes and his timing. Molinaro did it so well that most younger viewers have no idea there was anyone before him. His hangdog expression and his signature yup 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 became as much a part of that drive-in as the booths and the milkshakes. Married Betty Farrell in 1948, together until the end. October 30, 2015. Complications from gallbladder infection, 96 years old. The man who came to acting late replaced a legend at the counter and outlived nearly everyone who ever sat on those stools. 96. That is a punchline Al Del Vecchio would have delivered with a shrug and a sigh. Ellen Travolta, the sister nobody talks about. Ellen Travolta. Born October 6, 1939 in Englewood, New Jersey. Luisa Arcola, Chachi's mother, on Happy Days and Joni Loves Chachi. A warm, funny presence who grounded the younger cast in every scene she entered. Here is the detail that always surprises people. Ellen Travolta is John Travolta's older sister. The Travolta family had multiple performers, but while John became the biggest movie star of the late 70s with Saturday Night Fever and Grease, Ellen built a quieter career in television and stage that stretched across 5 decades without producing a single tabloid headline. She performed in regional theater well into her 70s. Steady, consistent. The kind of career that never trends, but never stops paying. In 2026, Ellen Travolta is 86. The Travolta nobody talks about turned out to be the one who never stopped working and never needed anyone to notice. Kathy Silvers, the girl who was a joke before she was a person. Kathy Silvers, born October 5th, 1963 in Los Angeles. Jenny Piccolo, Joni's best friend who was talked about for years as an unseen running gag before finally appearing on camera in 1980. Her father was Phil Silvers, Sergeant Bilko, comedy royalty. Kathy carried that name onto a set where her character had been a punchline for half a decade before she ever showed her face. That is the kind of pressure most actors never have to manage. In 2026, Kathy Silvers is 62. The deep-cut character the longtime fans remember, and the comedy bloodline that ran straight through her. Linda Goodfriend, the wife who walked away clean. Linda Goodfriend, born January 31st, 1953 in Fort Hood, Texas. Lori Beth Allen, the girl Richie Cunningham married, the wife who held things together while Ron Howard left the show to direct films that would win Academy Awards. After Happy Days, Linda did what almost nobody in Hollywood has the nerve to do. She walked away. No comeback attempts, no reality shows, no memoirs explaining what went wrong. She raised a family, built a private life so far from cameras that most fan sites have nothing on her beyond the show credits. She was also part of the 2011 lawsuit against CBS, the merchandising case, which tells you she hadn't forgotten what the show owed its cast, even if she'd left the spotlight behind. In 2026, Linda Goodfriend is 73, alive, private, content. The woman who played Richie's wife understood something Richie himself would have admired. that sometimes the bravest choice is deciding the spotlight isn't where you belong, and sometimes the quietest exit is the happiest ending. So that is the Happy Days cast, then and now, and the Happy Days tragedies the laugh track never lets you hear. What happened to the cast of Happy Days after the jukebox stopped is darker and stranger than any sitcom set in the 1950s was built to hold. Where are they in 2026? Ron Howard, still directing. Henry Winkler, still proving them wrong at 80. Marion Ross, 97 and still standing. Erin Moran, gone at 56. Robin Williams, gone at 63. And Pat Morita, gone at 73, still waiting for the recognition the dojo should have guaranteed. Which one are you still thinking about? Tell me in the comments.